Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient, been dealing with cancer since 2021, and I'm doing great and so happy. We're having some very warm weather here in Southern California. In fact, I looked at our forecast, and for the next 8 straight days, it's going to be over 100 here in the San Fernando Valley. So we're kind of bracing ourselves for that, but it's all good. I'm happy with whatever weather there is because I am so blessed to have opened my eyes this morning, and I'm excited about every single day. And I'm also excited about our guest today, Michelle Beck. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring her on, and you are in for a treat. So what I'd like to do at this time, Michelle, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are.
Thank you, Mark. I'm so honored to be here today To Be Your Own Hero. And I have to reiterate really quickly that every day that we wake up is a good day. My I'm currently no evidence of disease, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I actually have to say, I grew up close to where Mark is now in Southern California. And I'm not going to lie, one of the reasons I left there because it was too damn hot for me. Uh, I went to UC Santa Barbara, I went to UCLA and had a great career and family and friends down there, but I needed a change. And so took a job up here in Portland, Oregon, and met my husband. We now have an 11-year-old son, and I also have 4 older bonus kids who are 18 to 26. We have 2 crazy dogs. We love to explore in our travel trailer, and that's my big story personally. I've been blessed to generally be a stay-at-home mom since I had my son. Before that, I was a chief level executive assistant running executives and boards lives, and I was great at it, but it was a 24/7 job, and I knew that for me being a mom and staying home was very important, so I'm lucky that I got to do that. But when my son was not even 2, he was 20 months, and I received my first diagnosis of breast cancer.
So when that happened, what exactly was the process? Did an oncologist tell you that? And how did you react?
So I have a family history of breast cancer. My father's mother passed away from metastatic breast cancer in 2008. And so I knew that I needed to be on the alert. I started getting mammograms at age 37, which was before the recommended age of 40. Thankfully, my doctors took my concerns seriously, and it was caught on a regular mammogram. It was very early, stage 1, with no lymph node involvement. And so for that round of treatment, I had a lumpectomy and 7 weeks of radiation. I was very lucky that it was caught early. I did not have to have chemotherapy, and I really breezed through treatment. Since my son was so young, I kind of, once I finished treatment, I compartmentalized the cancer and I kind of put it away because I
No,
didn't
let's back up
want
a
to
little
think
bit.
about it.
So when you were diagnosed that time,
Mhm.
what went through your mind?
Yes, you asked that and I missed it. I apologize. I was not surprised because since I had a family history, I've always been a little bit fatalistic and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get this. And so honestly, I was not surprised, but you're obviously angry and shocked that even though I'm not surprised, I was still like, oh my God, it really happened to me. And you immediately go into fight mode. I wasn't fleeing or freezing. I was fighting. Like, I need to get this out of my body. Let's get this taken care of as soon as possible because I don't have time for this. I was a later in life mom and my son wasn't even 2 yet. So I knew that I had a lot of life to live. And so getting through whatever my oncologist said was the best thing to do, that's what I did. And but it was funny, I also negotiated with my oncologist because I had already booked tickets to go to Las Vegas to see Pink in concert, who's my favorite artist, and so I had to plan my surgeries around that concert time.
Was that was Pink playing with Lenny Kravitz by any chance?
Oh my gosh, not that time. I saw her with Lenny Kravitz at the Irvine Amphitheater back in the early in the 2000s. So yes, I did see that concert, but that wasn't this one.
Yeah, because I saw Pink and Lenny Kravitz in Vegas.
Oh, no, it wasn't Lenny that time. So, but yes, she is my um I'm older than she is, but I swear she is like my who I look up to because she's so incredibly truthful and she's honest and she's real. One of her songs on my website, on my About Me page, I have one of her songs on there called Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. And it really is about continuing to fight. And one of the words in there is the lines is there's not enough tape to shut this mouth because I cannot stop talking because I want to share what I went through with my cancer journeys with other people. So hopefully it allows them an easier path.
And I think so many of us feel so obligated to do that, because we've been blessed with life. We've come out
Yes.
the back end, and we see so many people. I have so many people coming to me on a daily basis saying, what do I do? And I understand. We understand what
Yes.
people are going through, and there's not enough education, real education about what to do when you get that cancer diagnosis, because it is a difficult time and it is a difficult situation, and there's no playbook for how to deal with it. It's like, here you go, you got cancer now, whatever happens, everybody chooses a path, and that's the one they go down. But it's more of a feeling of like guessing what to do instead of you know a rigid plan about what to do. And that's my big pet peeve about the whole situation.
Oh, 100%. I agree because when you hear those words that you have cancer, your brain kind of shuts down. And I liken it to the Charlie Brown speak where you're listening to people go wah 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 wah, which one of my recommendations to people when they do get a diagnosis to make sure they always have someone there with them in the office for those original appointments to take notes and to listen because my husband heard so many things that I did not because I was in shock. I wasn't surprised, but it's still like, "Oh my god, this is really happening to me." So, that is a piece of advice I always give someone is take someone with you to those appointments to write things down. Because while there are so many books on, people do memoirs and various things, once it happens to you, it's your journey and you need to figure out with your medical team and your family what is the best path for you, and that is not easy.
No, not at all, not at all. My oncologist, uh when she gave my diagnosis, it was both my wife and I were in there, and I heard certain things, and my wife heard other things. One of the things that my oncologist told me was to get your affairs in order. So, that was the
Ugh.
first thing my wife, was hell bent on doing, which is fine. I was okay with it, because it gave her comfort and satisfaction to do that. That wasn't number one priority in my agenda. My agenda was I had to live, period. And that was the major thing that I focused on was, uh, when I got my diagnosis, I was actually relieved, and I was actually thankful to hear, after going through so many tests
Mhm.
and procedures and everything like that for weeks and weeks. I mean, I had to go through so many different things because as it turned out, I had it in so many places. And
Sure.
so, it was interesting because I asked her, what she heard about that particular appointment, and we kind of heard different things because she's focusing on her well-being down the road. I was focused on my well-being, And so uh, that's basically what happened. Was a kind of a different scenario. So that was pretty interesting. So sorry for interrupting you, but go
Oh
ahead
gosh, no. And
and
well,
and keep proceeding with your journey.
that really highlights too what it is to cancer affects everyone in the family. And being a spouse or a partner of someone who's going through it, you you just want to fix everything and you can't. And that's one of the hardest parts for my husband was, and I'm sure your wife, she wants to do and make everything better and they can't. They can be there to support us and to listen and help out with various things, but it's challenging. And I'm very thankful. My husband is former military. So in his brain, he had a plan. This is how the plan was going to work. And then I was going to be fine. And that's where we were going to be. And that's where I'm at. But at the time, I'm emotional and he is logical, and so it doesn't always mesh well. But so I did mention my first diagnosis, which means I also had a second diagnosis. So for a little over 4 years later, on a regular mammogram in my other breast, I had a new primary occurrence. And that rocked my world so completely because I thought I was doing all of the right things. I had been on tamoxifen, which is the protocol of choice for premenopausal women after a breast cancer diagnosis. And I took that religiously for 4 years. And I still had a new primary diagnosis in my other breast. And so to me, I was like, well, what do you mean? I have it over here now. And at that point, there was a lot of guilt because at the time, kind of going back to the beginning, I had always said that if I ever got breast cancer, I would have a mastectomy and be done with it because I'd watched my grandmother go through it multiple times and subsequently pass from it. But when it came down to it, and I had that first diagnosis that was stage 1, very easily treatable, survivable, I opted for a lumpectomy because uh, my son was so young and I had waited so long to be a mom. I didn't want to go through that major surgery and recovery time and all those changes in my body when he was so young. In hindsight, that would have been a better choice for me physically because I wouldn't have presumably gotten the new diagnosis because I wouldn't have had that breast cancer tissue, but that's not what happened. So the second time around when I got my diagnosis, it completely it rocked my world as I mentioned. And at that point it was a no-brainer for me. I had a bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction and I also had my ovaries removed. I was 46 at the time, done having children, and for me I was like get rid of anything that could, all of these parts that I don't need anymore, get rid of them because I'm not going to take any more chances. And that was a rough year. My son was older, thankfully. He was 6 at the time and he was in kindergarten, so he was busy that way. But he also understood what was going on. And kids are smart. Kids know what the word cancer means and that people don't always make it. So at that point, we were dealing with my multiple surgeries and reconstruction, but also the emotions of, oh my gosh, this has happened to me twice. And dealing with all of that, I sunk into a very deep depression. I had anxiety ever since I became a parent. And so all of those things just really ramped up. And 2017 was a horrible year for me. Even though the cancer got out of my body, it was awful.
So let me pause you right there, and you raised something that I'm always interested in. So your son is 6 years old.
Mhm.
How did he take it? How is he handling your situation? Was he sad about it? Where was he at?
Yes. So we were honest with the basic points. Mom has something called cancer. It's in her body, but she's having these surgeries and we're going to go take it out. And when we didn't have any in-depth discussions around him because at 6, we don't want to put too many other bad things in his head. And he came through great, actually. He got to spend a lot of time with family and friends, which he really enjoyed when I was going through various things. And we did have him see a counselor because we thought that was very important to talk to someone else outside of our home because he didn't have any friends whose parents had gone through cancer. So he didn't have anyone he could really talk to about it. So he did probably 6 months with a family counselor that my husband and I had already been seeing with an older son that we had, and it was actually really helpful. I highly recommend that if you go through this and you have younger children, give them a space where they can talk about it.
The, you bring up that's a fantastic point. I talked to very few people that go through therapy and have people around them go through therapy, but it's also important for the caregivers and the people who
Yes.
are giving care to somebody who has cancer. And so that is a fantastic point, and it's something that people should always keep an open mind to, because there's cancer is such a mental journey. Life is such a mental journey, but when you add cancer in there, it just adds such a different element to life, and people aren't prepared for that, right?
Well, because we don't want to think about it. It's something we don't learn about until we are forced to. I did see some of it with my grandmother as she was going through it, but I was a teenager when she was first diagnosed and 38 when she passed. So there were definitely times in my life where it wasn't at the forefront and I knew something about it, and I bought pink t-shirts and to support research and various things, but until it is put in your lap and you have to learn by, it's trial by fire. Until that point, you really are completely uneducated unless you are an oncologist.
I my term paper at Loyola Marymount, where I went to college, my big term paper was about cancer. And so I was fascinated by it, by researching it and everything like that. But it's a totally different story when you get it. It's
Yes.
one thing to research and read about it, but you don't absorb as much until it's facing you right in the face, and it makes you come to terms and stare death in its face. When you have to do that, things get real very quickly. And I always tell people that when somebody becomes an accountant, a doctor, whatever it may be, they study years and years and years to do so. But with cancer, all of a sudden it just knocks on your door, and you're expected to make life-changing, life-altering decisions with no knowledge. That's
Hmm.
a scary thing. Don't you agree?
Oh, 100% no knowledge, and your mental facility literally just goes out the window because it's incredibly hard to comprehend that you have something in your body that wants to kill you. And these cancer cells are smart. And it's funny, I'm currently finishing a book about my cancer journey and all the things that I learned from it. And one of the things that really I was kind of digging deep into, because we have came up with vaccinations and treatments and cures for so many diseases, but not cancer, because cancer cells are individual to our own bodies. And so they have not been able to figure out a way to give a vaccine or a cure for this because it's different for every person. Even though they hit the same internal body parts and our organs, it's so incredibly difficult. And just the minuscule research I did to write about this, it hurt my brain because and but I've also seen, I was able to go to the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium last year, and it's funny because people are getting diagnosed with cancer left and right. And you're like, "God, why can they not figure this out? Why can we can get people to the moon and almost to Mars, but we still have cancer?" And so it's kind of depressing. But when I went to this symposium last year, I saw thousands of individuals who are working so hard, and it is their life's mission to find cures or make treatments better for breast cancer. And that was so inspiring to me. And it was just, I'm so fortunate that I was able to do that. It just, it really gave me hope for the future so that others do not have to go through what I have went through.
Well, I think even since my journey started in 2021, what's so refreshing to me is to see how much more information is really starting to come out and how many more people are banding together and how many more people are advocating. And so that's a beautiful thing, I think.
Definitely. The connection with people, I will honestly say, is what has really gotten me to this point. So I am 6.5 years out from my second diagnosis, and I kind of went through, I was on autopilot. Let's get through treatment, let's get through surgeries. I was put on a endocrine therapy called aromatase inhibitors, which is the postmenopausal pill of choice for women for hormone positive breast cancer. And it was awful on my body, but I did it for 5 years because I knew I needed to. So once I got through that point where my surgeries were done, I was on the medication, my son was in school, and I decided I wanted to give back because I needed to do something. And so I'm so fortunate. There is a local support organization in Tigard, Oregon, where I live called Breast Friends. And I'd driven by it for 5 years every day. And then the first time around, I was like, I don't need support. I'm fine. But when it came to the second time, and I felt so vulnerable and open and depressed and anxious, I walked in to volunteer. But I found so much more than that. Ended up volunteering there for a year and a half. I connected with the women who, everyone there were all survivors. They had been through it and they understood, and they wrapped me in their arms, and it just became such a safe place for me. I really found connection and community, and just having those arms of that organization wrapped around me propelled me to become a whole different person. I met my best friend there now. Her name is Yvonne. She was the director of programs there. And on that first day, I turned in my volunteer application, and Allison, who's now the executive director, she goes, do you need to talk to someone? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And she goes, no, no, come over here. And I met Yvonne, and I sat and cried in her arms for an hour. And because she got it, she understood what I had been going through. And now, 6 years later, she is my person. We are yin and yang to each other. But we would not have met but for the cancer. Our lives are so different. We live 2 miles from each other, but we would have never intersected. And the other women who I've met at this organization truly are remarkable, and they hold each other up and they give support. When I found the organization and started to volunteer, I signed up for everything. There was a luncheon coming up. There was a Thrive Beyond Cancer weekend, and I was volunteering. And my husband was joking because he knows me very well. He's like, "Oh, you're going to be working there in no time." And I'm like, "No, I'm just going to volunteer." Well, I ended up working there, and it was fabulous. I got to work with these women, helping provide programs to the new women who were coming in. I also took over the hosting of their podcast, Breast Friends Cancer Support Network, which I hosted for 2 years, so over 100 episodes, where I've spoken with some of the same people you have met with, Christine Handy and some others, because as we had mentioned earlier, the cancer journey, while there are so many people diagnosed, it can be a very small group if you're really looking for inspiration and to support each other. And so I loved that podcast so much because I love talking and I love sharing about my journey. I consider myself an oversharer, and I will answer any question that anyone wants to know, from what happens after your surgery, to what do your new reconstructed breasts look like, to what happens to your libido when you're on this medication. All of these things I will answer, because if I can help one woman get through the pain that I had, I consider myself a success.
That's awesome. I'd like to ask you a question at this point in time. Uh, I think we have a lot more to discuss. Uh, I think we could talk for hours, but we don't want to do that to the viewers. Would you like to come back for a part two?
Oh, I would love to. As I had mentioned earlier, I could talk for hours about my cancer journey because it really do I wish I didn't have cancer? Of course. But it has brought so many good things and good changes into my life. I would love to share about the things that it's brought me to now. So yes, I would love to come back.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So why don't we do this? Why don't we get a final thought from you
Sure.
for today, and then we'll bring you back and we'll do it again and have some more fun.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you,
So
Mark.
what is your final thought for today?
So my final thought would be if you're going through something challenging that you're not quite sure how to get through, find a mantra. That's something that you can repeat to yourself over and over. And I found this from one of my guests on the Breast Friends podcast. Her name was Michelle Cambolis. She wrote a book called When Women Rise, and it was about mantras and meditation. And the one that really sings to me, and I say it every morning when I wake up, is that I'm grateful for this breath, this body, and this life. Because anything that I do is involved in that. I'm grateful that I wake up every day. Do I have issues in my life? Of course I do, but I'm here to conquer those issues, and cancer gave me a new outlook on life.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I totally agree. It's done the same thing for me. And thank you so much for sharing this time with me, Michelle.
Oh, of course.
It's
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
it's been an honor and truly enjoyable for sure. And so we are gonna shoot for a part two to
Yes.
talk more about your journey and talk about your book and your podcasts and everything like that. So I'd like to thank everyone at this time, and what I always do is I read a couple of positive quotes, and this is from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And the first one is, the great secret of successful living is to change your thinking from wrong to right, from error to truth. And the second quote is, never let any mistake cause you to stop believing in yourself. Learn from it and go on. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. And hopefully you can subscribe to my channel, To Be Your Own Hero, make a comment in the comment section, click the notification bell for further notifications, and join us again for our great interviews on To Be Your Own Hero, and make the most of every single day. Let's help make this world a better place for everyone, and go out and in your daily life, when you go to the bank, you go to the market, whatever it may be, smile, try to cheer somebody up, and spread some positivity, because this world really needs positivity and positive thoughts and positive gestures, because our world is hurting. And if we all come together and do a little bit, it doesn't have to be anything big. Just say hello to somebody. And here in California, the trend is to just ignore people, walk right by them,
Oh,
say hello to people, and smile, and try to make somebody's day, and make the most out of every single day, every single hour, every single minute, and every single breath. Thank you once again for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.